Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to that.
I'm going to applaud y'all for being here. This is a huge step. Becoming educated and aware of the space is a very important part of it all. So who here has heard of San Antonio NORML or NORML period? Yeah, okay, woo! Yeah, so NORML is an acronym for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. So we focus on getting legal access to responsible adults, whether it's medicinal or recreational, and we do that at a legislative level. So we work towards actually changing and creating the policies that enable a space like this. Which brings me to my topic, which is social equity. So who has actually heard the term social equity? Who knows what social equity is, yeah? Awesome, that's great. So what's interesting about social equity and the cannabis space is that it sometimes happens naturally, so I might just be here to coin the term for y'all, or it might be something you're already doing, but it's definitely something that needs to happen when it comes to the cannabis industry. So we're watching the industry blossom and boom. This is CBD, I know, but that is still cannabis. So we are in the cannabis space right now. The cannabis policies that have been in place for the past 60, 70 years have greatly and disproportionately affected communities in America, minority communities. So when we're watching this industry boom and blossom, we also want to watch these communities that have been disproportionately affected by these current policies also do well and blossom. So we want to make sure, today I just want to plant the seed and make sure that when you're scheming your major plan, your cannabis plan, your big business plan, that you're also incorporating social equity into your business model. Businesses that just do better, and we can see that in places like Colorado or in places like California. Michigan has really great programs, and New York has some social equity programs as well. So an example of what social equity looks like, and something where hopefully we can reflect here in Texas, is places like New York who have expunged convictions for people that have gotten arrested and gotten in trouble for possession of low-level marijuana. So if you're able to go purchase 4 ounces at your local dispensary, then you should be able to walk away and walk free from your less than 2-ounce possession case, right? So that's just one of the ways that we can start thinking about social equity, but that happens at the legislative process, right? So other things that we've seen states and social equity programs do is offer maybe fee reductions. So what we're hoping to do to minorities that have been affected by or disproportionately affected by cannabis policies in the past is to secure equity for them. So we want them to be able to hold stakes in this space as well, whether it's opening their own shop or being able to grow and process a plant for patients. They should be able to participate in this industry as well, and in some cases also be given priority. So I don't know where we're going to see that happen in Texas, to what level we're going to see it happen, but we're barely even holding the conversation up at the legislative level. So that is something that we want to keep in mind when you're developing your plans. And like I said, it happens naturally. A lot of people want to give back to the community. A lot of people are in this space because they saw that they can help somebody, that they can change a community, that they can have a positive impact. So that's really good to see. But we don't want to stop at wanting to see a better world. We want to make sure that we are including social equity into our business models. And there's different ways to go about that. Here in Texas, we want to make sure that we include the industry, that we have private people. There's plenty of organizations here, plenty of businesses here, and that's who we want to reel in, because in Texas, the government is probably going to be the last resource for any type of cannabis business. We hopefully will see some hemp grants come up. So, we want to make sure that when all that's being processed that we're keeping social equity in mind. So some governments like California, they're offering $25 million to municipalities to go ahead and start their program on contingent on creating social equity programs within their business model. So why? We want to include social equity to help empower these communities that have been so greatly impacted. It could be an arrest, so you could have a record. You could have an entire business plan that's going to empower and include this individual, but you can also just employ individuals that have been impacted by current policies, whether, like if they have a record, if they have some jail time. We want to make sure that they, again, are included and at least brought to the table, right? Let's see, we talked about access to the industry, opportunities in the industry, licensing, fee reductions, and all this happens while we're writing these policies. So I'm also going to cover the legislative process, right? So we're all kind of wondering why it's taken so long, why it's even taken so long to be where we are now when we're only dealing with CBD. Well, in Texas, we don't get to vote. This CBD bill, HB 1325, that we just passed this legislative session, that was because there was people like you and me up at the Capitol holding meetings with their representation and telling them, helping them identify the difference between hemp and marijuana, THC and CBD. But it took us going up there and having that conversation. We don't get to have the conversation at the ballot box. Colorado got to vote it through, California got to vote it through. That's not going to happen in Texas. That's why it's taken so long. We know through polls that more than 80% of Texas wants sensible policies, whether it's penalty reduction or access to medical patients. So if it were up to the people, we would already have the market, and we would make sure that it's done right. Currently in Texas, who knew that we had a medical marijuana program, right? So we have a medical marijuana program, but if you haven't heard about it, it's because you probably don't have access to it. Your mom probably doesn't have access to it. Your neighbor probably doesn't have access to it. It's a very limited, very narrow pathway to gaining access to the medical marijuana program that we do have. And even at that, we're capped at 0.5 THC. There are people out here selling 0.3 THC. Yes, the 0.2 difference might make a difference for the child with epilepsy, but even those studies have been done at 1% THC, right? So we're not even serving the community that it was originally designed for properly. So when we're looking at this program that offers testing, that offers regulation, but it's only a 0.2 difference, what's going to steer the market, what's going to steer the consumer away from, somebody that might be making what it says is on the label and somebody that might not. So we're going to look at regulations come in for the hemp program, right? Like right now, we're all still operating under a kind of like a gray market, right? But we're helping a lot of people. We're learning our product a little bit better, and we're just waiting to see what our government does. So now licensing is going to be another thing. So again, when it comes to social equity, we want the small entrepreneur, the small business owner, the people here to have access and get the opportunity to actually participate in this program. So if you're interested in getting in the business, you need to make sure that you're holding these meetings with your representation, letting them know that you want access to this. There are plenty of companies and organizations. Most of this oil, we're not growing CBD flower in Texas yet. So all of this is coming from somewhere else. These businesses have been running, have been operating, and they have their eyes on Texas. They're already big. They have the capital. We want to make sure that we participate as small business owners and as entrepreneurs and get our social equity and get a piece of the pie in Texas, because this is where, we were doing all the groundwork with the learning curve, educating people, developing quality products. We want to make sure that we get access to this and don't just get the opportunity to work for somebody that's been doing it in another state. So that's going to be a really big fight that I hope to see in the next legislative session. So that brings me to the electoral season. So we want to make sure that we're voting, guys, that we're making sure we know who's running and who's representing our interests, and we want to make sure that we put those people in power. There's a lot of room for growth this next legislative session. A lot of seats are for grabs. We're probably going to get a new Speaker of the House of Representatives. So a lot can change in our favor if we get up and educate ourselves and vote for the right people and put the right people in power, right? We want to make sure that our interests are being represented properly. But you have to get involved. I wish I could just pass around a sheet right now and have everybody that walked through that door sign the petition and tell y'all to vote when you vote for your next representative on some sort of amendment, but that's just not the way it works here, and that's where a lot of us get discouraged, right? We actually have to talk to somebody, and that can be a little daunting, but we have to talk to this representation. They need to know who you are, why this is important for you, and what we've been doing at the Capitol is offering information like actual data, actual research. There's plenty of it out there. It might not be U.S.-based research, but it's out there, and it's in English, So make sure you're doing your part and due diligence to talk to these people, because there's people talking to your representatives in this space, right? There's people promoting this legislation, but they're also making sure that they're stakeholders and that they get first dibs. All right, so keep your representation on their toes. Let them know you're watching. One of the great ways to do that is the people running for office right now are holding town halls, are holding campaign meetings. You want to show up there. You want to talk to them. You want to find out. You want to engage them during the question process. You really have to get involved, especially if you want to participate in this process once licensing and all of that comes around. So minority groups get affected. That's who we're pushing for social equity for. The youth is a minority group, and here in Texas, 23% of the individual arrested per year is actually within college years. So you can lose access to funding for school, employment, housing opportunities. So we want to make sure that these people get the opportunity to get employed or get grants that these organizations or businesses we see here have put together for education. So with this, we want to inspire everybody to get organized. These are just very small, very basic examples of what social equity could look like. And I'm sure your business model already has something like that incorporated in it. But you want to make sure you expand on that and you do your best to include social equity in your model. The government can get involved, and if we do legalize a market, which is, that might be a little bit down the line, but with this organization, with hemp anyways, there might be some agricultural grants available. We want to make sure that those grants are contingent on social equity, whether it's for the small farmer and not just the big farmer, right? We want to incentivize. That's our biggest thing in Texas. People want to grow it. People want to put it in the ground. So we want to make sure that our small farming community is being protected, is not being taken advantage of or bullied by our government or by these bigger organizations. We want to make sure that they get to participate, and not just these big organizations coming in, buying everything up. We want to put pressure on our government for that. So again, small business owners and entrepreneurs, it has to be part of your responsibility, part of your model. This field, you can burn out. It's so broad, it's growing so much, and if you're just in it for the money, you could potentially burn out. You can put a lot of time and effort into something that you're just going to get over, because this sometimes is a labor of love. Even now, you spend so much time educating one person, and they might walk away from your booth without anything in their hands and 3 samples in their little baggie or in their stomach, right? We can do this at a state and a local level. So at a state level, you talk to your representation, make sure that when we're writing these laws, that local farmers, small farmers get dibs, that people that have been in jail for possession or for distributing cannabis get the opportunity to participate in the industry, right? Or at a local level, as a small business, you might have a coat run for the homeless or a can drive for the homeless, just any way that you can start applying social equity to your business model. So that's pretty much it for social equity. I'm sure y'all have your own understanding of it and get the gist of what social equity is. If you'd like to expand on the conversation and get a little bit more information, I'm set up on the other side of this wall. We are fundraising today and giving people memberships, so you know what's going on, how you can get involved. One of the ways that we participate as an organization in the legislative process is we will take your testimony up to the Capitol and schedule a meeting with your representation, with your office, because a lot of time there's sick people, there's patients. Right now we're talking about medical marijuana and penalty reduction, right? So I know a lot of us want to legalize and grow your own cannabis, grow your own medicine in your mom's closet or whatever, but we're a little bit a ways from that. We have to recognize the political climate that we're in and do our best to navigate that. We're not a political organization because we love politics, far from the truth. But that is the game that we have to play to make sure that people get justice, that people get access, and that people participate, right? So that's what we're hoping to inspire y'all to do today. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank y'all for everything that you do.